Look, the reaction to Trump's speech, fun. Not important, though. None of that is really going to affect your life as much as some of these other headlines. Like when we talk about what's going on with the tariffs today, when we talk about some of the things he proposed in the speech last night. What about this has you concerned, or are you looking forward to, or you think is going to affect you? 800-288-9227. Well, my next guest coming on from Real Clear Politics and Real Clear Investigations, James Varney's back on the James Show. Welcome back, Mr. Varney.
Thanks for having me, James.
So, generally speaking, Trump did what most presidents do whenever they get in office. There's a little spike in the polls, a little feeling of goodwill, and then it usually slowly starts to recede. But is it receding for Donald Trump? He seems to be hanging on to it a little bit.
He really does. And the polling that I've seen this morning from the speech is, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood, sometimes 80, CBS News had something, 80% approve. So, yes, like you just mentioned, there's been a lot of talk about the Democratic reaction to it all and the way they behaved and et cetera. But I think it speaks to how popular a lot of the things that he's been doing are, from DOGE to energy. And I think even in Ukraine, it's amazing how the headlines they're like you're having a heart attack, right? They go, it's all Ukraine, it's all Zelensky, it's all this. Now there's this speech, it's all this, it's this speech. It's amazing how many different points it seems to hit on. And so far, anyway, it does seem to break his way each time in terms of popular support.
Well, is he different? Has he changed his approach? Is he getting more goodwill because he's more positive than he was the first time around?
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that. I don't know how different he is, except that he's much more battle-hardened. He's much more experienced as a politician. You remember how the guys on the campaign trail, politicians love to say, I'm not a politician.
Right.
And you're like, of course you are. Well, Trump really wasn't when he got elected last time. But now he is, and he knows how these things work. And I think you and I have talked about this before. When the first term came, he also had a Republican majority in Congress. He obviously had the Russia hoax and all these other things going on, but they really didn't accomplish anything. And people were saying, how come they don't have legislation and ideas lined up like planes on a runway to just take off and do them? And this time around, he does. So I think, yes, the positive part of his personality has gotten the upper hand, which is good for him. And then I think it's also just the pace and the fact that he is doing these things that he said he would that people really like.
All right. So the response to this, nothing new came out of the response. It was called racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. It was stealing from poor people to give to rich billionaires. So are they just going to continue with that, or do you expect them to come up with a better line of attack sometime soon?
Well, I don't know that they've got one lined up to use right now. I do think they appear, anyway, to be kind of serious about maybe forcing a government shutdown. I think it's almost as if, look, nothing's working, and our messaging just has not either been getting through or hasn't been the right one. So let's just shut this down. Because I do think that they're extremely frustrated. We don't really see the, quote, resistance like we did last time. And what we just talked about with all of these different bills and these planes taking off the runway, all these things getting up in the air, they're feeling, I think, a little at sea. So I don't think they will shy away from a shutdown. I think that might be the next push they make.
Varney, what do you think about the $5 million gold card, where if you want to come here, you pay $5 million, you get to jump the line? Didn't we already have something like that? Don't we have some sort of program for rich people?
I don't know the answer to that, James. I mean, I think I don't know. I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. They talked about, what was it, the 1H or, these the immigration visas that go supposedly to tech geniuses.
Yeah, those are like 01 visas.
You're right. Okay, that's it. But if you looked at it, it wasn't like all those jobs were paying like $400,000 with stock benefits and all. It's like certainly people from UT Austin or LSU, there's got to be a couple people every year graduating that could do that job. So I don't know.
Well, Varney, let me put it in this context. Would you be in favor of the $5 million a pop gold card program if it meant you don't have to pay any more income taxes?
Well, yes.
There you go. All right, Varnes, what you got coming up on Real Clear Politics and Real Clear Investigations?
Well, I just had a story up about the incredible labyrinth that is the federal budgeting and spending, which is giving DOJ so many headaches. And we've got two more things coming up. You know, I had broke that story last year about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund in the EPA, which a lot of people have been talking about now in the last couple of weeks. We got another story on that coming up, and then we've got another one. I don't know if you saw this, but they said that the Office of Civil Rights in the Education Department had 12,000 cases that Trump just canceled. And this was, of course, pitched as if Trump's going to undo the Civil Rights Act and take away everybody's civil rights. But 12,000?
What is going on? Is that a real thing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just Mississippi burning, 1951. I mean, we've made no progress since the civil rights movement. We can't make any moves in that direction. All right, thank you very much, Varney. I appreciate your time, sir.
Sure, James. Happy to be here.
It's the great James Varney, Real Clear Politics, Real Clear Investigations. So what do you think about this idea for gold cards? Did you hear that in Trump's speech last night? He had mentioned something like that before, but now that it's on the record, we're having a good discussion about it. What do you think? 800-288-9227.
With that goal in mind, we have developed in great detail what we are calling the gold card, which goes on sale very, very soon. For $5 million, we will allow the most successful job-creating people from all over the world to buy a path to U.S. citizenship. It's like the green card, but better and more.
And gold. It's like the green card, but gold, I think is what I would say. What do you think about that? 800-288-9227. I'm thoroughly in favor of it. I think immigration is something that should be used to the benefit of the existing American citizenry. And the arena in which I would accept this is if this includes ending the income tax. And whenever I talk about ending the income tax, I'm always amazed by how un-American the conversation immediately turns. What do you mean? They're going to lower our taxes and get rid of our taxes? We're supposed to be taxed to the hilt. We're Americans. No, that's kind of the reason we started the Revolutionary War. And look, even if we get rid of the income tax, it's not like we're getting rid of taxes altogether. You're still going to have to pay sales tax. You're still going to have to pay property tax. You're still going to have to pay building permit tax. You're still going to have to pay a fee when you get your license, or God forbid, if you get a CDL, there's another tax on that. You still got cigarette taxes. You still got the corporate income taxes. You still got to pay for your fishing license. You still got to pay for your gas tax or your hunting license, or some states still have an inheritance tax, an inventory tax. There's a liquor tax. There's a luxury tax. All the licenses they have to buy. I mentioned hunting, fishing, down to like marriage license, everything like that. You still have your Social Security tax. You still have your Medicare tax. What are you worried about? There's plenty of taxes still to go. We can't get rid of one of them. And if this does it, man, am I in favor of that. Also, if you got $5 million, I'm going to go ahead and assume you're not a loser. 800-288-9227. This is Tyler in Salado. You're on WBAP. What do you think, sir?
I vehemently oppose it, and it's because of the comments he makes after where you guys cut off, where he said that these rich people are going to come to the country and hire the students that are coming out of the universities. But the gold card came immediately after his meeting with the Prime Minister of India. And if you're not following the H-1B visa debate right now that's been going on, when he says they're going to hire the students coming out of the universities, he's talking about the overstayed student visas of foreigners. This is going to do nothing to actually boost the American worker. It's going to be all for overseas payments of remittance going back to foreign countries that are untaxed.
Okay. I mean, I still disagree. It's not going to all be for the students that are coming from other countries, but the problem with the immigration being sort of the either or, like what we have now or this, is it's not fair because neither one of us are getting our ideal situation where the border's actually controlled and we don't have illegal immigrants who are flooding over and we don't have people overstaying their visas. So, I mean, I kind of get the lesser of the two evils argument that you're doing here, but I still think it's more of a net positive for the American citizen than a negative.
I just see that there's a lot of displaced American tech workers that are being like Elon Musk, for instance, is offering H-1B visa people down in his Austin plant for anywhere from $45,000 to $60,000, when those should be $80,000 to $100,000 engineering jobs. And the whole legalized visa debate is really just modern-day slavery when you think about it. They're underpaying these people to be here so that corporations can benefit while robbing, like, even American graduates of opportunities for entry-level positions. And in the long run, I think this is just a sellout to foreign donors and foreign leaders that want to send remittance back to their countries and prop up their economies on untaxed American dollars.
Well, what if we made this gold card apply to all those workers that get hired too? You want to stay here and be hired by this other guy who bought his gold card? It's another $5 million for this other immigrant that you want to bring in. And if you need to hire a host of 10 of them, then it'll be $50 million. And if we get $5 million for each one of the immigrants, because now you're making kind of a chain migration argument, which, is hypothetical and it's hard to argue for or against hypotheticals. But even if it works out like you say it does, I can see that. What if we charge them each $5 million?
I mean, at the end of the day, there's always a price on the American citizenship, right? Because as Vivek says, it's just an idea, not a place. So.
Well, you give me a lot to think about. Great call. Thank you, Tyler and Saleda. Appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Miguel in Cleburne. You're on WBAP. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and comment on the gold card. Originally, I was just going to say that what I liked about what he said last night was the no taxes on tips and no taxes on Social Security. But the idea of the gold card reminds me of going back in history whenever immigration first got started. And even though, a lot of people came, at that point in time, they were actually trying to use that as a method to seek talent, if you will, to come to our nation to help make our nation better as far as, whether it be lawyers, doctors, whatever. And I see the same thing applying now with this gold card in that we're pulling, instead of just pulling from the talent of America, we're pulling talent from the globe.
Yeah, I like the brain drain effect that it has. And that's one of the, as much as I'll complain about NASA being kind of an unnecessary waste of taxpayer dollars, what it did, especially here for Texas, is it had the accidental effect of what you just described there, Miguel, is we went around the world. We want the top rocket scientists, the top, space engineers or whatever. We moved them all to this neighborhood in Houston. And did you grow up here? It says you're from Cleveland. Are you from here, Miguel?
I'm actually from West Texas, but I've been in
Texas counts. Texas counts. A little while. Yeah. So when we were growing up and we were doing UIL, I don't know if they had this at your school, but at my school they had academic decathlon. Did they have that?
The what?
There was a thing called academic decathlon. It was like the UIL academic meets, except it was a team where you would go and everyone would take 10 tests like a decathlon, and you would get scored like that. But what happened is, don't worry, I'll tie this together, is we moved all these nerds, the biggest, smartest, most mutant nerds on planet Earth, and hyper-concentrated them in one neighborhood in Southeast Houston where we put NASA. Well, all these nerds started dating each other and marrying each other, and then they reproduced, and they made this whole crop, this whole new generation of super nerds. Because if your dad's a super nerd and your mom's a super nerd, you're going to be off the charts. Now, they have terrible athletics down at Friendswood ISD, but this is the school that would clean up every year in the academic decathlon competition at the regional and state level. They were they were the biggest, scariest guys on the block. It was like playing Odessa Permian. It was like going up against the 90s Bulls. It wasn't even a big school. And you should have seen the team. They looked like the bar scene from Star Wars. They all had like eyesight issues, or they were really skinny or really fat, or like one leg was longer than the other or something. But we just have like a hyper smart crew that's just chilling down in Southeast Houston. In fact, this came up on a show about this time last year, and I looked it up, and I'm like, well, when I was a kid, Friendswood was cleaning house. I wonder if they're still pretty good. They won state again last year in academic decathlon. So that's a very huge example of kind of what Miguel's describing. I like the idea of using our immigration system to get all the biggest, brightest brains, period. I think there should be like an IQ test. If you're like an Einstein level dude, you get in here and you don't have to pay $5 million. But that's kind of like when you ask somebody to pay $5 million, you're asking for people who've been in a position to accumulate money that you and I don't have. So let's just assume they're doing better than the average bear on the other side of the planet. I like it. Overall, I think it's more good than bad, especially if we can get rid of that silly income tax. Shannon, Fort Worth, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the gold card?
Thank you, James, for taking my call. I think it's a great idea. I would just really like to know what other criteria besides money lets you buy the gold card. And my concern is there's a lot of people in the world that have made it legally, but there's also a lot of, I'm just going to say, cartel members that are flush with cash that could easily afford to buy a gold card. But, surely that's not, we would have some other criteria that we want them to meet.
Yeah, probably a background check. Probably you can't be like Osama bin Laden or one of the Ayatollahs. I mean, Vladimir Putin has access to $5 million. Will we sell one to him? I'm sure that's not the only criteria, but if there is a proper background check, you're okay with the gold card system?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think people that do it right, that build businesses and employ people and are very profitable, they're the kind of people that you want in the country, and they're the kind of people that will help build it and make it great again, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but also if they just came here and did nothing, that would still be good for us. If they just moved their money from the First National Bank of Dubai to the First National Bank of Dallas, that alone would make our lives better. So, yeah, I really don't see any downside to this.
I don't either. I agree, even if they don't come here and build a business. I'm just saying, in order to end up with that kind of money.
Oh, yeah. It's good to assume that they've done something right with their life because, they're doing better than me. That's for damn sure, Shannon. Yeah, I appreciate that. And look, that's another good thing about retirees. Like, you think, oh, no, all these old people that are moving to Florida, they're going to be a drain on the system because, they use all this health care and they're not actually working or producing anything. No, they're the richest among us. People having assets coming and living next to you, even if you're retired, makes your life a lot better. Jeff in Plano, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the gold cards?
Thanks for taking my call. Shannon stole my thunder. Because I was more concerned about, drug cartels, Russian oligarchs, maybe people from Saudi Arabia, like the bin Laden family, stuff like that. But my other point would be is how many people in the world have the $5 million per person? So a family of four, that's $20 million to do this. 2,000, 3,000, what's the number?
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the criticisms of the gold card program. People will clap back and they're like, well, there's only X amount of people in the world that could possibly afford it. So even if all of them came here, it wouldn't be able to it wouldn't be able to pay off our national debt. It's like, okay, they don't have $36 trillion worth of gold cards sold, but it would still be a net. I mean, there's nothing that's $36 trillion worth of value that you could tap in. So I don't think that's legit. Also, like if you took away all the stuff that I want to take away from the federal budget, this would pay for it because more than 70% of our federal budget right now is socialism, is social programs. It's just taking dollar from one citizen and giving it to another citizen, and not an employee, not like a guy that works at the post office or a soldier, standing a post. This is Social Security. This is Medicare. This is all kinds of other health insurance program and CHIP programs. This is unemployment, income security, disability. So, the education department, kind of a lot of that falls under the same system, with the scholarships and whatnot. So if we trim down government to its actual constitutional size, and I'll even give you, let's cut the military. How about in half? So instead of spending $800 billion a year, we spend $400 billion a year on the military. The gold cards would cover my ideal size of government, and I think they would cover it with no problem.
2,000 people buying that'd just be $1 billion. I believe the math is correct on that. 2,000 at $5 million is $1 billion.
200.
Okay, so that's still a drop in the bucket when you look at our national debt, which is in the trillions.
Yeah. So now here it comes to, can we sell enough each year to just cover what we get in income taxes? And the answer to that is a much, much lower number. So, we're still going to have corporate income taxes. We're still going to have gas taxes and property taxes and sales taxes. But I like the trade-off thrown in there just to make people's wheels spin in their head. What if we did this in lieu of an income tax? And that would be fantastic because we'd all get, a 12-something% raise?
Or we could have the people that make more than $5 million a year pay a little bit more in taxes, just a little bit more.
Okay, how would you do that? Would you raise the income tax level to do that?
On people that make $5 billion or more a year, or $5 million or more a year?
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, that wouldn't do it then, because Jeff Bezos only gets paid $82,000 a year from Amazon. Most of his wealth and his accumulated assets or accumulated wealth is from assets, non-liquid assets. So how would you tax that?
Well, that's changing the tax law, because most of those billionaires, that's how they operate. It's a whole different spreadsheet. That's how they operate. Right.
But a lot of people say, well, we just need the millionaires to pay more. How would you do it? I'm not against that. I'm not fighting you on that. It's just like if you have a house and $100 in the bank and your house is worth like $1 million, but tomorrow your house is worth $2 million, but you still have $100 in the bank. Like, how do you pay taxes on that without selling your house, without destroying the net worth?
I am not a tax guy.
Yeah.
But there are ways that these people that make this kind of money do hide their wealth. We can all agree on that, correct?
I don't even think it's hiding your wealth. If it's in non-liquid assets and it's available and open to the public for everyone to know about, I think people have just had so much envy thrown at them and so much hatred that we have this idea that rich people aren't paying their fair share. And when you look at the ratio of how much income they make versus how much of the income tax they pay, they're overpaying. They're overpaying what they make compared to the rest of us, and compared to especially to the 40% that make money and pay nothing into the income tax. Are we worried about them paying their fair share too?
Well, you said, how much did you say Jeff Bezos makes a year? How much?
Last time I checked, it was like $83,000.
83. I make more than $83,000 a year. Okay,
yeah.
But I'm not worth $200 billion.
I know, but
that's a huge difference.
But Jeff, if we raise income tax rates, you are going to get a bigger tax increase than Jeff Bezos. So I make
less than $100,000 a year. We're talking about people with over $5 million a year.
Okay, Jeff, you come at me with a way to actually affect the taxes on a more equitable level, and I'll be for it. But this whole idea that we just need to raise tax rates so millionaires will pay more, that doesn't work. That hasn't worked. That's not working right now, and it's not going to work the next time we try it. Donald Trump proposed gold cards in his sort of State of the Union last night. $5 million will get you jumping the line and legal status in the United States instantaneously. But a lot of people are asking the same thing I was asking. Don't we already have a program like that? Well, let's ask Texas immigration attorney Kate Lincoln Goldfinch back on the James Show. Welcome back, Kate. Don't we already have something like that, like something similar to the gold card system?
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, we have something called the EB-5 Investors Visa, which is a way that people who have significant money to invest can apply and get a green card. But it's a much lower investment. It's somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. And it is the way that a lot of commercial real estate development occurs, particularly in, more remote rural areas in the U.S. We have about 8,000 people applying for that current visa right now.
So how many people do we let in every year under the EB-5?
That's the number. It's about 8,000 people per. Mm-hmm.
I thought that's how many people were in the pipeline.
No, that's about how many they approve each year.
Well, that's not a lot.
No, it's not a lot, and I think obviously, you increased the gold card requirement to 5 million, and the number would be even lower. So, I think maybe it could have some impact on bottom line, but there's also threats or reports that the gold card would replace the EB-5, which, the overall net result could be less money invested, fewer people coming in, and could have a negative impact on real estate development overall.
Well, it also sounds like for the EB-5, not only do you have to have the assets, you have to have like an active business plan to do something with it.
Not for the EB-5. You have to invest locked in something that pre-exists. There are other types of investors visas that are temporary. So the EB-5 is for a green card. There's temporary visas where people can come in and start a business and show their business plan, and then in order to renew it, they have to show that the business continues to be viable. And so there's way more than 8,000 people on that. I don't know the numbers, but that's only a temporary visa. It doesn't lead to permanent status. And so this gold card would not theoretically impact that program.
Is there a waiting list for these big time, or maybe minuscule waiting list?
No, there's not a waiting list. This isn't one of those where, in a lot of types of immigration, there's a cap, primarily in family-based immigration, but also in some employment-based green cards. And so that's what leads to these really long wait times, like 20 years plus for a lot of these other cases. But those don't exist in the investment, like in the EB-5, really because, there are fewer people in that category applying to come in. So they don't hit their max.
Well, thank you. I didn't know anything about the EB-5. That's exactly what I was looking for. Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, how do they find your work outside of WBAP?
You look me up online. It's Lincoln like the president, Goldfinch like the bird.
All right, there she is again. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Warren Zeters has the Relapse Tour coming to the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory April 11th. Tickets on sale now at livenation.com, or you can text TOUR to 800-288-9227 to maybe win a pair of tickets off of us. Text TOUR to 800-288-9227. That's going to do it for the James Show. If you need some more James Show action until I get back before 2, you can always check out the podcast, WBAP.com and the WBAP app. Stay put. Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.